No wonder National Party Crown Prince Hermes Kriel this week said the National Party should start boycotting the Truth Commission. We stay in KwaZulu-Natal, but we move on to the human rights violations hearings in Empangeni this week. After almost 6 months of testimony before the Truth Commission, most of us have become familiar with the hundreds of terrible stories of human rights violations that happened across the length and the breadth of our country. But the unfortunate truth is that more people were killed in KwaZulu-Natal in clashes between the ANC and Inkatha than directly by the state in the entire history of apartheid.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of killings, no prosecutions. And the one prosecution that we've had so far is just the foot soldiers. And they have killed, I mean, you talk about Eugene de Kock. Someone like Israel Shangwani has killed dozens of people. I mean, there are dozens of Eugene de Kocks running around this region, and nobody is paying any attention to it. They're focusing on de Kock, but de Kock is one of many. There are many other equally evil people around here, and they haven't been touched so far.
This week's hearings brought the brutality of the ongoing conflict in the province home.
For the past few days here in KwaZulu-Natal, we've heard stories of horror like almost nowhere else in the country. We've heard stories of civil war between the ANC and the IFP, stories of fear, of suspicion, but mostly stories of death that happened everywhere, every day, every night, for more than 10 years. In one of the most horrific cases ever heard by the Truth Commission, a mother and a grandmother this week told of watching how her 4 children and 2 grandchildren were slaughtered by the ANC before her eyes. 1990, Umgababa. When the ANC men came to kill them, 2 of Mrs. Shandu's sons had already been killed. Now they rounded up the rest of the family and herded them into their house.
When they got there, they made them face the wardrobes with their hands up, and they stood behind them. The one person who survived there was a young man who opened the wardrobe and got inside. They shot the first one. Then they stabbed him. Every time they shot one, they'd stab them. I heard their voices. No one screamed twice. Each one screamed just once. Then I'd hear the next one, and another one, until they finished them all. When they were all finished, only one had survived. They poured petrol over their corpses inside the house, and they lighted them. The fire burned. Just when it hit the wardrobe, my grandchild came out with flames on his body. Linda and Tulile were crying, trying to get out of the fire. Linda and Tulile were not shot. They were thrown into the flames. Mafi was the last. After they'd burnt all the corpses, I was still in the hole. I heard Mafi crying, running around the house I was in. One of the killers inside the house shouted, "I want him dead. Don't let him go. I want him dead." I heard him crying, and they shot him. They burnt him outside. They put a plank as big as a door on him. They poured petrol and they burnt him. My children's voices crying are still ringing in my ears. And the pain of poverty. Because all of them supported me.
And then there were the people, sometimes only vaguely associated with the ANC, who were killed by the IFP. Often the KwaZulu police were suspected of being directly involved in these killings, or involved by closing their ears and their eyes to people's cries for help. 1990, Ezikhawini outside Empangeni, a war zone.
It was volatile. It was terrible. People were dying like flies. People were dying. It was terrible. We were just sleeping in the passages, not in our beds, not at all. We sound of bullets all over. From 6 o'clock, we must close the gate, close the door, and we must eat our supper in the passage. We could not sit in the dining room, could not sleep in the bedroom. We were sleeping in the passage, just like that.
The killers of Dorcas Lutuli's husband walked up to his surgery door one evening, posing as patients. When he opened the door, they shot him.
By then, my little daughter Nolundi came in and just went berserk. I said, who shot my dad? What were you talking about? And he told me, look at the cartridges. And I look at that. Then I came closer, doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and trying to resuscitate him. He was gasping and the blood was gushing right at the back. And I could see, the bullet, I think, entered this in the upper angle of the chest. So the blood was gushing right at the back, and the pulse was fainting, and he died right in my hands. He was just gasping. Couldn't do anything. He died in my arms. That was the end of his life.
1995, Mtuba, an IFP stronghold, another war zone. An assassination attempt by the IFP and KwaZulu police on ANC leader Bheki Ntuli is unsuccessful. Then they started killing his family.
Then on the 15th of September, my brother's son was also killed, Jabulani. And in fact, they killed 2 people on the 18th, because it was my mother and Jabulani, my cousin. And on the 15th of September, 1995, they killed my brother's son, Jabulani. And on the 15th of December, the same year, they killed my youngest brother. So those are the things that had happened to my family. And in all cases, there were collaboration within the systems, that is the security forces, the police, and so on. They were always working hand in hand. You could find the KwaZulu police raiding your house now, preparing for the IFP to attack you in the night.
In all these cases of murder, nobody has ever been found guilty. Some have not even been investigated. The killers walk around as free men. The victims still live in fear.
This is a truth commission. This thing is very good for reconciliation. Why they don't go to that truth commission and explain what happened? Because there's amnesty. Nothing is going to be done to them. They're not going to be taken to jail. We're not asking them to be jailed. We're not asking for anything. We want truth, nothing else but truth. But they're brave up to this very hour. It's torture. It's torture. They must know that they are torturing us. And then God is not going to tolerate that. The government may tolerate it, some other people may tolerate it, but God, one day, will say, about my people, enough is enough. They must be afraid of the revenge of God.
Earlier this year, a policeman serving an 18-year jail sentence for killing 2 ANC members near Empangeni appeared before the Amnesty Committee. The relatives of his victims were not present then, but this week they told the Truth Commission the other side of the story.
Sekulu Reserve near Empangeni is surrounded by plantations. The trees, like people, go through cycles of life and death, and in nature, as in life, death often comes before its time. On the 14th of August 1992, a group of policemen attacked the house of Michael Mtetwa. 3 policemen were killed during the shootout that followed. Michael and his friend Simon Msweli were both injured.
When I got in there, I found that there was blood in the house, and I thought probably my husband had been injured and had been taken to the hospital, and after they had left, I would go see my husband at the hospital.
Warrant Officer Hendrik Steyn admitted that he killed the men. On his way to the scene of the incident, he came across the bakkie in which the injured were being taken to hospital. Steyn got into the vehicle and rerouted it to a secluded spot. The injured men were dragged from the bakkie.
I
then, at the same distance, fired at Samuel Shweleni. After the first shot, I fired 2 more shots just to make sure that he was dead. I thereafter fired 2 shots at Michael Mtetwa, the other deceased.
But Simon Msweli's mother does not agree with Steyn's version of the story.
I think they were assaulted until they died because we couldn't even identify him. His eyes had been gouged out. He was never shot. He was tortured. He was violated. He was also mutilated. We could not identify him. I only identified him through his thumb. There was a certain mark on his thumb.
In his amnesty application, Hendrik Steyn said that Simon Msweli was the leader of a gang that was wanted for arson, murder and robbery. His mother says he was a quiet child, definitely not a criminal. He was, however, a member of the ANC. So was his friend.
Since members of the ANC and other liberal organizations were regarded as terrorists and therefore our enemies, we were taught that we had to act against them in a very serious manner. It was them or us. I believed in the political doctrines of the IFP and I supported them.
Today, 4 years after a Casper drove into it, the Mtetwa home is still a monument to destruction. Because of continuous police harassment, the family moved away and only recently returned to their house and to the grave of their husband and father. The reason for his death is still a mystery.
I got the phone uSimon njengwaziyo usho ukuthi umkhwenyana wami bamdubula ngoba wayekanye naye uSimon bebona ukuthi uzoletha ubufakazi ukuthi ngeke ngiphatheke kahle uma ngabe ngingakaze mina ngikhulume nalo ngoba ngiyacabanga ukuthi kufanele lucele kimi ushwele.
I want to see Steyn and I want to see if I'll forgive him.